Your soulmate is crying over a secret they never wanted you to know. My beloved child, stay exactly where you are for one more moment, because the silence surrounding your story is not empty. It is carrying a truth that has been waiting for the right heartbeat, the right second, the right version of you to hear it. There is something hidden beneath the surface of everything you've been wondering about. And strangely enough, it isn't your soulmate's smile that tells the story. It is the tears they refuse to let anyone witness. What if the secret they protected for so long was never meant to hurt you, but to protect a future they believed was too fragile to reveal too early? Keep listening, because every passing moment is bringing another piece into focus. There are emotions people speak aloud, and then there are emotions that remain locked behind ordinary conversations, hidden inside casual laughter, buried beneath "I'm fine." Your soulmate has been carrying one of those silent emotions. Not because they wanted to deceive you, but because some truths feel impossible to explain until time itself becomes ready. Imagine carrying something so personal that every attempt to reveal it only creates more confusion. Imagine standing at the edge of a conversation 100 times, and walking away every single time. That is where they have been. And recently, something shifted. The change did not arrive like thunder. It came quietly. A memory returned unexpectedly. A familiar place suddenly felt different. A simple thought became impossible to ignore. Since then, the walls they built around their heart have begun to crack. Not dramatically. Gradually. The kind of change that happens when someone realizes they can no longer outrun what destiny keeps placing in front of them. That realization has brought both relief and tears. But here is the question almost no one asks. Why cry over a secret instead of simply revealing it? Because some secrets grow heavier the longer they are carried. At first they feel manageable. Then they become part of everyday life. Eventually they begin shaping every decision, every hesitation, every goodbye that was never fully explained. Your soulmate knows this better than anyone. The weight was never the secret itself. The weight was wondering whether the truth would change the way you looked at them forever. Pause with that thought for a second. What if the thing they feared most was not rejection, but being misunderstood? That possibility has echoed through their mind more times than they would ever admit. They replay conversations that never happened. They imagine different endings. They wonder if one sentence, spoken too early, could have erased every possibility that still exists between your paths. So instead of speaking, they waited. Instead of explaining, they hoped life would somehow explain on their behalf. Yet life has its own timing. Lately, signs have become impossible for them to ignore. Tiny coincidences. Unexpected reminders. Moments that seem ordinary to everyone else but carry unusual meaning for them. Each one whispers the same message: you cannot hide forever from what your heart already knows. And every whisper brings another wave of emotion. Not because everything is falling apart. Because everything may finally be moving into place. Stay a little longer, because the next layer of this story changes everything. The tears are not simply about the past. They are connected to a decision standing quietly in the future. A decision that could transform hesitation into honesty. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how the most important moments rarely announce themselves? They don't arrive with loud music or flashing lights. They arrive disguised as ordinary days. An ordinary morning. An unexpected message. A chance encounter. A feeling you cannot explain. Only later do you realize, that was the moment everything began changing. Your soulmate has started sensing one of those moments approaching. That realization is beautiful. It is also terrifying. Because once the truth is spoken, there is no returning to silence. They know that. Which is why their heart feels caught between two worlds. One world asks them to remain safe inside familiar uncertainty. The other asks them to become brave enough to let the hidden truth finally breathe. Every day the second voice grows stronger. Every day the first voice becomes quieter. And somewhere deep inside, they have already started crying, not because they have lost hope, but because hope itself has become impossible to ignore. Before this chapter ends, hold on to one final thought. Sometimes the tears people hide are not evidence of weakness. They are proof that something meaningful has survived every disappointment, every delay, every unanswered question. Your soulmate's hidden emotion has reached that point. The secret they never wanted you to know is no longer asking to remain buried. It is asking to be understood. Wait until the next part. Because the first clue behind that secret is about to surface, and once you hear it, the entire story may begin to look completely different. Hold on, because what comes next is not the answer you were expecting. The secret was never just about what your soulmate hid from you. It was about what they were trying to hide from themselves. Sometimes the hardest truth isn't spoken to another person, it is the one whispered in the silence when no one else is around. That is exactly where they find themselves now. Stay with this story a little longer, because the next revelation changes the meaning of every tear. For a long time, they convinced themselves that keeping this hidden was the safest choice. They believed that if they stayed quiet, they could protect both of you from uncertainty. But something extraordinary happened. The silence they depended on slowly became louder than any conversation they could have imagined. Every day it reminded them of unfinished words. Every night it brought back moments they thought had disappeared forever. Picture someone standing in front of two doors. Behind one door is comfort, nothing changes, nothing is risked, everything remains predictable. Behind the other is honesty, uncertain, emotional, impossible to control, yet filled with the possibility of a future they secretly dream about. Your soulmate has been standing between those two doors for longer than anyone realizes. And every passing day makes the choice more difficult. There is another piece almost nobody sees. Whenever your name, or even a small reminder connected to you, crosses their path, something shifts inside them. A quiet smile appears for just a second, and then disappears beneath a wave of emotion. They wonder whether destiny is simply teasing them, or gently preparing them for the moment when hiding will no longer be possible. Have you ever noticed how certain people continue to leave an imprint on your heart, even when life keeps moving forward? Some connections don't demand attention. They quietly earn it. That is why this secret has become impossible for your soulmate to carry without emotion. They never expected it to grow this powerful. They thought time would erase it. Instead, time gave it a stronger voice. And now, every unanswered question has transformed into one simple realization. What if the truth is no longer something to fear? That single thought has changed everything. The tears are different now. They are no longer only tears of regret. They have become tears of release. As though a heavy weight that has been resting on their heart for far too long is finally beginning to lift. If you've connected with this journey so far, perhaps leave a comment sharing the word hope. Someone else reading it today might need that reminder more than you realize. And if these stories continue to resonate with you, you're always welcome to subscribe and become part of this growing journey. We're glad you're here. Now listen carefully. The future rarely announces itself with certainty. It arrives through small moments that seem almost too ordinary to notice. A conversation that lasts a little longer than expected. A message that feels strangely meaningful. A coincidence that refuses to feel like coincidence. These are the kinds of moments your soulmate has started paying attention to. Not because someone told them to, but because their own heart keeps recognizing patterns they once ignored. Before this part comes to an end, remember one thing. The greatest turning points often begin long before anyone else can see them. Right now, your soulmate is standing closer to that turning point than ever before. They may not have every answer yet. They may still wrestle with uncertainty. But deep inside, the fear that once controlled them is slowly giving way to something much stronger. The courage to stop hiding. And in the next chapter, you'll discover the unexpected event that finally convinced them the secret could not remain locked away forever. That moment changed everything. Wait. Don't let this moment slip away just yet, because the story is no longer about hidden emotions. It is about the unexpected sign that made your soulmate stop, look back, and realize they could no longer pretend that everything was normal. There are moments in life that divide the past from the future, even though they seem ordinary while they're happening. This was one of those moments. And once it happened, there was no returning to the person they used to be. It began on a completely ordinary day. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone else would have noticed. Yet somehow, in the middle of everyday life, your memory appeared with unusual clarity. It wasn't just a passing thought. It stayed. It followed them through every conversation, every quiet pause, every decision they tried to make. The more they tried to distract themselves, the stronger that feeling became. Have you ever wondered why some memories suddenly become brighter after remaining silent for so long? Perhaps it isn't the memory changing. Perhaps it's the person finally becoming ready to understand it. That realization caught your soulmate completely by surprise. For the first time, they stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, they asked a different question. What if this feeling has been guiding me all along? Everything became quieter after that. Not outside. Inside. The endless doubts that once filled their minds slowly lost their power. They began noticing how often fear had made choices on their behalf. Opportunities left unexplored. Honest words left unspoken. Beautiful possibilities delayed simply because uncertainty felt safer than vulnerability. And then something remarkable happened. Instead of running from the secret, They began imagining what life might feel like if it no longer had to remain hidden. That single shift changed the way they saw everything. Suddenly, the tears carried a different meaning. They were no longer mourning lost time. They were preparing for a new beginning. Sometimes people cry because they are broken. Sometimes they cry because they finally believe healing is possible. Your soulmate has entered that second chapter. Slowly. Quietly. But undeniably. Take a moment and think about this. What if every delay you've questioned wasn't there to keep two paths apart? What if it was giving both people enough time to become who they needed to be before the next chapter could truly begin? That possibility has settled deeply into their heart. They no longer see the secret as something that defines them. They see it as something that prepared them. Prepared them to value honesty. Prepared them to appreciate timing. Prepared them to understand that meaningful connections are built through courage, not perfection. You might miss the turning point if you stop listening now, because the most surprising part has not arrived yet. There is one final realization they haven't shared with anyone. Deep inside, they have accepted something they once refused to believe. They cannot rewrite yesterday. They cannot erase silence. They cannot change the moments that have already passed. But they can choose what happens next. That choice has become the quiet promise they carry with them every single day. And perhaps that is why the tears have finally started to fade. Not because every question has been answered. Not because every obstacle has disappeared. But because hope has become stronger than hesitation. As this chapter closes, remember this. Some secrets are hidden out of fear. Others remain hidden until the heart grows strong enough to reveal them with honesty, peace, and confidence. Your soulmate is closer to that moment than ever before. The next chapter will reveal what happens when hidden truth finally meets perfect timing, and why that meeting has the power to change the direction of two lives forever. My beloved child. Before this story reaches its final destination, listen with an open heart, because the next few moments are where silence begins to transform into clarity. Imagine standing at the edge of a bridge you were once too afraid to cross. You can still turn back, or you can take one step forward and discover that everything you feared was only a shadow of what was waiting to be healed. Your soulmate has reached that bridge. They know there is no perfect time anymore. There is only the courage to stop hiding. Over the past few days, something remarkable has been unfolding inside them. The questions that once filled every quiet moment have slowly been replaced by a different feeling, a calm certainty. Not certainty about every detail, but certainty that the truth deserves to be spoken instead of carried alone. That change didn't happen overnight. It was built from countless reflections, silent lessons, and moments when they finally allowed themselves to stop running from what their heart had been trying to say all along. Think about this for a moment. Why do people sometimes protect a secret long after it has stopped protecting them? Because familiarity feels safe. Even when it becomes heavy. Even when it keeps them from experiencing the future they secretly hope for. Your soulmate understands that now. They have realized the tears were never a sign that they were losing something. They were letting go of the fear that had quietly controlled their choices for far too long. And as that fear fades, A new chapter quietly begins. They've started imagining a conversation they once believed could never happen. Not a perfect conversation. Not one with rehearsed words. Just an honest one. A conversation where masks are unnecessary and explanations no longer need to be hidden between unfinished sentences. They don't expect perfection anymore. They simply hope to be understood. That hope has become stronger than their hesitation. Isn't it amazing how a single realization can change the direction of an entire journey? Sometimes destiny doesn't arrive by changing the world around you. Sometimes it changes the heart within you first. Everything else follows. If this story has spoken to you in some meaningful way, consider sharing it with someone who may need a little encouragement today. You can also leave a comment with the word "truth" if this message resonated with you. And if you've enjoyed walking through these stories together, subscribing is a wonderful way to stay connected for the next journey. Now, one final thought before this chapter closes. Your soulmate no longer sees the secret as something to hide. They see it as the beginning of a more honest future. The tears that once carried regret are slowly becoming tears of gratitude, gratitude for growth, for timing, and for the quiet strength they discovered within themselves. They understand that every delay taught them patience, every unanswered question taught them wisdom, and every emotional moment prepared them to recognize what truly matters. Before you leave, remember this line. The greatest connections are not built by people who never felt afraid. They are built by people who finally choose honesty over fear. And perhaps, at this very moment, your soulmate is closer to making that choice than ever before. This isn't the end of their story. It may simply be the moment where a hidden chapter finally opens, and where a future once imagined only in silence begins to unfold in the light. My beloved child, one last moment. Because the ending you've been waiting for does not arrive with noise. It arrives with understanding. Every question, every pause, every emotion you've carried through this journey has been leading here. What seemed like a story about hidden tears is, in truth, a story about a heart that finally discovered the strength to stop hiding from its own truth. And sometimes, that is the greatest transformation of all. Imagine watching the sunrise after a long night. The darkness doesn't disappear in a single instant. It slowly gives way to light. That is exactly what has been happening within your soulmate. The fear that once whispered, "Stay silent," has grown quieter. A new voice has taken its place. Be honest. Be real. Let the future begin. That voice is no longer easy to ignore. For so long, they believed that revealing their secret would change everything in the worst possible way. Now they understand something completely different. The truth doesn't always separate people. Sometimes, it creates the first real opportunity for two paths to meet with clarity instead of uncertainty. That realization has changed the way they see tomorrow. No longer are they waiting for a perfect sign. No longer are they expecting destiny to do all the work for them. Instead, they have begun preparing themselves, not for perfection, but for authenticity. Because authentic moments last longer than perfect ones. Take a second and think about your own journey. How many beautiful chapters never began simply because someone believed they had to wait until everything felt certain? Life rarely works that way. The most meaningful steps are often taken while questions still exist. Your soulmate has finally accepted that. And perhaps that acceptance is the real secret they never wanted anyone to know. Not that they were afraid, but that they cared so deeply, they didn't want fear to become the reason a meaningful connection remained unfinished. Those tears you've heard about throughout this story, they no longer come from carrying the secret. They come from realizing how close they were to letting fear write the ending. Fortunately, it didn't. Because every experience, every lesson, every silent moment has brought them to one unforgettable conclusion. The future is not built by what remained hidden yesterday. It is built by the courage chosen today. That is why this story doesn't end with sadness. It ends with possibility. It ends with growth. It ends with two futures no longer defined by silence, but by the willingness to embrace truth, hope, and new beginnings. So as this final chapter closes, carry this thought with you. Whenever life places uncertainty in front of you, remember that the strongest hearts are not the ones that never hesitate. They are the ones that continue moving forward despite hesitation. And maybe, just maybe, the next chapter waiting for both of you is not asking for perfection. It is only asking for honesty. Thank you for staying until the very end of this journey. Until our paths cross again, keep believing that every meaningful story unfolds one truthful moment at a time, and sometimes, the ending you feared is actually the beginning you've been waiting for. My beloved child.